Welcome back. It's still tuned in to News and Views with myself, Salailo Makwidiri. The time is 19 minutes past 9 Central African time, and we're going to be looking at a very, very important turn of events. We're going to be analyzing 1 year since Donald Trump began his second term as President of the United States of America. It's been a year that has been marked by seismic shifts in foreign policy. It doesn't matter where you look, whether it's, trade wars and energy diplomacy to fractious ties with what you might consider traditional allies of the United States, and some very, very bold new geopolitical gambits. We'll be analyzing all of that and the global ramifications that are currently unfolding. And we'll be joined by international relations expert at the University of the Witwatersrand, Professor John Stremlau, helping us make sense of what it means for Africa, this second coming of Donald Trump, the impact that it has had for global alliances, for countries like South Africa and our place in the world. And he's joining us via a virtual platform. Professor, thank you so much for joining us. Welcome to Salam Media. Really appreciate you giving us your time.
Thank you very much for having me.
Pleasure's all ours. And I think we'll start by assessing the foreign policy landscape and the impact that President Donald Trump has had for the last 12 months. From your assessment of his foreign policy doctrine, especially considering some of the recent moves that we've seen by Donald Trump to almost reshape global alliances and to increase the US's influence, what do you make of it? What do you make of the last 12 months and the impact that Donald Trump has had?
Well, it's been an exhausting experience for everyone, and I sense that for people overseas as well, because the U.S. has been a fairly reliable partner for the last 50 years, and it's been a multilateralist and a liberal democracy. But Donald Trump was elected a second time. And I didn't support him in the election, of course, and thought that Kamala Harris would be a much better candidate. But he has been really exhausting, and I just think that the voters must speak out next November, this November. On the congressional elections, and then in 2028 he cannot run again. So this has been an exhausting year, but I keep telling everyone, and I'm insisting on this in all my interviews in South Africa, that Donald Trump is just Donald Trump, and he is not the American people. And he did win narrowly over Kamala Harris, but he exploits the advantages that the Republicans have in the state level, and he has been supported by the Republican Party, but it's only 28% of the public, and the Democrats are similarly that way. And the uncertainties of the swing voters are what's bedeviling the politics of the United States right now. But for South Africa, the South Africans have had much experience, the ANC has had much experience in dealing with the Americans during the anti-apartheid movement, and they built bridges to the Democrats, and I think that they should be doing that right now.
And before we get into some specifics, I want to touch on, I think, what you briefly touched on, understanding the fact that this is only but an administration of Donald Trump. It's going to come to an end at some point. How much of that should influence, especially a country like South Africa, how we interact with the United States of America, with the understanding that this is only just an administration? The United States of America will always be there long past Donald Trump.
Well, that's for sure. But it is a crisis for the Americans, and this is such a situation that one hopes one watches carefully and responds accordingly. The South African government has been extremely responsible in engaging the Americans and the Trump administration, but sticking to its principles. And I admire and I'm a member of the ANC, and I admire the ANC for its consistency under Cyril Ramaphosa in support of democratic principles on Palestine and on dealing with the Americans. And the throwing out of the Kenyan workers at the U.S. Embassy for a technical failure to and get the proper visas for them was a reminder that at least they are processing Afrikaners, white Afrikaners, and it shows that Trump is a racist and a demagogue and a threat to the United States.
And we've had some very, very unprecedented moves by Donald Trump. The most notable one being the interactions with Venezuela and the subsequent capture of Nicolas Maduro, the president of Venezuela. How unprecedented was that move? And what's your analysis of it as one of the major flashpoints of Donald Trump's return?
Well, after 9/11, the American military did in pursuit of Osama bin Laden did operate extraterritorially and did pull off a very precise operation, and they duplicated that in the case of Nicolas Maduro in Venezuela. But for Trump to crow about this in a way that it shows he does not have a plan or strategy. It's the so-called Don Road delusion that The Economist has rightly pointed to in his cover story on the intervention in Venezuela. And he does not seem to be in any way clear about what he's going to do with Greenland, but he wants it, and it's another trophy for him, and he'll probably rename it Trumpland if he gets it. But I don't think that the NATO countries, and this is a serious issue. The liberal international order is, and which South Africa supports, is up for grabs now, and Donald Trump is posing a clear and present threat to that liberal international order.
And we're seeing that the impact, that stance has had on traditional allies of the United States, NATO, and Europe, to be specific. Let's talk about the impact that this administration has had on the US and its traditional Western allies. You mentioned Denmark and it being, I think, top of the conversation at this current moment. Your assessment on that front?
Well, exactly that he has offended the European allies. They have not been always together on everything, but 9/11 did invoke the chapters 5 of the NATO agreement, which was that they should all rally around the vulnerable, the U.S. And the process of working together for a common peace has been a signature issue. The U.S. has deviated from it in Iraq and in Afghanistan and in Vietnam. I'm a product of the Vietnam era, and it is certainly for the NATO countries to hold America account for its commitment to sovereign equality. And the situation with Donald Trump is a life-threatening to the alliance. But I think it's going to prevail. I hope it will prevail. And the congressional delegation that went to Denmark last week to reassure Denmark that the internationalists in the Congress are supporting the Danes in their claim for sovereignty over Greenland, and the Americans have had all sorts of assurances from the Danes about the security issues, but nevertheless, Donald Trump wants Denmark, and he seems hell-bent on getting Denmark. And it's going to be a very interesting Davos conference to watch, and the playing of this thing. It's drama in real time, and I don't have an answer to what's going to happen.
Moving away from Europe and NATO, I think the Middle East has also been a flashpoint with Trump's return. And in his campaign speech, I remember he said, he'll be the one. He essentially campaigned on being the one to ending all the forever wars in the Middle East and delivering peace in that part of the world. Yet 1 year on into his second term, we saw what's been happening in Gaza and Palestine and the devastation there. We saw interactions with Iran and the tensions there intensify, and US diplomacy essentially being replaced by pressure and what looks like transactional deals with some of the Middle Eastern countries. What's your analysis of the Middle East? Has Trump fundamentally failed on his core Middle East promises and in fact made the region slightly more unstable than what he found it to be after returning to office?
Well, it's a very complex situation, but when I was working for the policy planning staff under Dennis Ross 30 years ago, that two-state solution was for self-determination for the Palestinian people absolutely a sine qua non. And Trump has got a like-minded leader in Bibi Netanyahu, and who is an ethnic nationalist and a racist, and clearly wants to ethnically cleanse the Palestinians from the so-called Israeli homeland, which is an anathema to me, and it is unfair to the Palestinians who were displaced throughout the Israeli, it's a complicated world. It's genocide was perpetrated by the Europeans, the Germans, against the Jewish people. But nevertheless, a bargain ought to be struck, and Mandela and the South African ANC certainly set the standard in the transition here. And so I want to see that if they can possibly work that out, but I don't think Donald Trump is the man to do it.
No, most definitely. I want to look at this America first kind of approach that Donald Trump campaigned on, and it looks like this is his strategy that he has employed. What do you make of it? America first, ultimately leading to these frayed alliances and upsetting the established order that we've known it to be. You mentioned at the beginning of this interview that for the last 50 years, America's positioned itself as, the leaders and facilitators of multilateralism. From your perspective, this America first approach, has it strengthened the US in any way? Has it given it more leverage when it comes to some of the strategic interests that it might have, or has it undermined everything altogether?
Well, I'm a multilateralist, and I believe that, we make progress slowly by consensus. And Donald Trump is a multipolar regional hegemon, and he wants to reassert the historic, so-called. He is not a student of history by any means. He thinks he is American first is in the hemisphere, and the Russians would be in Eurasia, and the Chinese in Asia. That's a very stable and unstable arrangement. The multipolarity has brought World War I and World War II upon the likes of the world, and the American coming through the World War II said we have to find a better way, and the United Nations was the product of that. It's a compromise. It's an imperfect institution, but it's worth the effort to make it better. Just like democracy is the work of ongoing process. It's never ending. And democracies make mistakes, but they are correctable mistakes. And South Africa has had its brush with brothers of another mother, to Trevor Noah's famous comment about Zuma and Trump, and it's self-correcting, and even if with the terrible problems that afflict South Africa, it's inclusive and it's democratic, but it's woefully inequitable, and it's got to be overcome. But you do it by step and deliberation, and you have a media that's responsible as your media is, and press on. It's hard work, but diplomacy is hard work, and Trump is an easy fixer, but he's a breaker ultimately, and I hope that the Americans wake up to the disaster that Trump has perpetrated on the world, and steps back. The democracy is an imperfect system, but compared to every other system that I know, autocracy is not the answer.
Mm, 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 mm. Could one of the unintended consequences of Donald Trump being the president of the United States be BRICS and the alliance that we're seeing forming, which is seen as the alternative to the United States of America and the general West? Is this administration of Trump a push towards the BRICS Plus kind of engaging a bit more, whether it's with trade, whether it's with security, and seeing America as an unreliable partner, as being very, very unpredictable, and a new world order coming post Trump 2.0?
Well, a new world order is coming, but what it amounts to is going to have to be for the diplomats to decide. And as we know in South Africa, all politics is local, and it happens to communities all over the world, and we've got to find a way to prevent autocracy from rearing its head. You know, smart guys are still mortal, and even Xi Jinping is a lifelong leader now, and along with Museveni and Mugabe was. I mean, after all, and I don't think that lifelong leaders are the answer. I don't think that central government is stronger, and the BRICS is a collection of autocracies and a few democracies, Brazil and South Africa. But it's an experiment that will press on, but it's an experiment, and I don't think that any regional organization or subset of countries is the answer. I hope that we can find a way to promote reform of the United Nations, and maybe the U.S. Under Trump might put this in perspective. Who knows?
Well, there you have it, Professor Stremlau. Thank you so much for joining us. I think it has been
Thank
a very
you.
insightful conversation. Really appreciate it, and hope we chat again soon.
Okay, bye-bye.
There you have it. Yeah, I think very important insights there coming from Professor Stremlau. And I want to hear from you. I want to hear your views. Trump 2.0. What do you make of this administration, the second coming of Donald Trump, and the impact it has had on the world, particularly as South Africans? Do you think Trump might have unintentionally given a boost, given a rejuvenated, I think, energy to the BRICS project, the BRICS experiment? And how do you think some of the world's major governments, including that of South Africa, should interact with this administration? Does it signal the end of the United States hegemony, its influence in the world? Does it pave a way for a new world order, with maybe China being at the forefront, especially for Africa? I'll see your line. Our WhatsApp line is 061-766-0355. And you can engage with us on our various social media platforms. Just search at Salam Media, and you'll be able to watch and listen to some of the interviews that we've had live. Otherwise, we're going to take a quick break. News and views continues after this.